Morning, guys. Just admitting your friends. حسن جودة. آية. جنى جرايحي. جنى ليان. أسامة. رايا. تدرس. يحيى. ياسمين سعيد. جودة. ياسين. And Yusuf Awad. So I have, and this is Yusuf Sahrawi. Okay. Give me a second to share the screen. Good morning, all. We haven't done literature yet. Can you hear me, guys? Good morning. Can you answer me, please? Good morning. Guys, I have 22 students. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Mariam. We haven't started literature yet, and you leave the literature stuff till the night of the exam and then complain that we have much stuff and so on. So please follow up from now. Yesterday and the day before, we should have done this part, which is a short story written by Ambrose Bierce. The title is An Occurrence at Owl Bridge or Owl Creek Bridge. I uploaded some videos, short videos about this short story. You are supposed to read it well. Okay, so yesterday and the day before, we started here. This is, if you have the digital copy of the book, starts with page 478 up to page 489. Okay, so yesterday and the day before, we should have read this part well. It's a short story written by Ambrose Bierce. You have the videos on SMS. Today, according to the weekly plan, we should study some of the primary sources, and here, starting from page 492, I think. Yes, here. Primary sources. What are primary sources? Primary sources include the documents or artifacts created by any witness who attended an event. Now we talk about the American Civil War between 1861 and 1865. So anybody who wrote any journal, any diary about this event is called a primary source. Primary sources, again, include the documents or artifacts created by a witness, a person who attended this event, or a participant in an event. They can be first-hand testimony, somebody who, an eyewitness, for example, who attended this or saw this event, him or herself, or evidence created during the time period that you are studying, which is the Civil War. Primary sources may include diaries, letters, interviews, oral histories, photographs, any document, again, any document that documents an important event. And now, in this term, we're talking or we're studying the Civil War era. We have also newspaper articles, government documents, poems, novels, plays, and music. Any work of art or any document that discusses or talks about this important event. The collection and analysis of primary sources is central to historical research. When a historian studies a specific period of time, he or she resorts to these primary sources to get some information or first-hand information. This information was written by a person, again, who attended or who witnessed the event himself or herself. This is why they are trusted. Uh, while there are many digital primary resources available, now they are digitalized. It is very important to remember that the majority of primary sources have not yet been digitalized or digitized. We are going to study diaries and journals only in this term, and diaries and journals are confused. They are used interchangeably. A diary simply an idea, states an idea, but the journal gives or shapes the idea, gives emotions, suggestions, and so on. In brief, I'm going to upload a word paper about this, about the difference between journals and diaries later, inshallah. Okay, so here we have three journals and diaries. The first one is Mary Chestnut's Civil War and a Confederate account of the Battle of Gettysburg and recollections of a private. A private is a low-rank soldier. Uh, about the forms, let's talk about diaries and journals. I want to ask you first, is there anyone here who keeps a diary or a journal? Does anyone here keep a diary? Jana Garaihi? I know ladies most of the time write to or like to write down their daily events somehow. I'm sure for some time you had a diary or you kept a diary. Jana Garaihi, can you hear me? Jana Walid Garaihi? Okay, Jana. Jana has a problem with her mic. طيب Alia? Alia? Alia Walid?
Yes, mister.
Have you ever kept a diary?
No.
Never? Who
No.
has, guys? Thank you, Alia. Who has? Who has kept a diary? Ryan, have you ever kept a diary? Ryan?
Yes. No, I didn't keep it there.
Never. At least for one day. You never did this.
I don't remember, so I don't think so.
Okay. So diaries and journals are personal records of events, thoughts, feelings, and observations that have the following traits. Guys, remember these things. These are the characteristics or the traits of diaries and journals. They are written informally because they are personal. They are written informally in a series of dated entries. You write the date and what happened on that day. Okay. Number two, they express the writer's immediate responses to events. Again, because they are personal experiences, personal opinions. Again, they express the writer's immediate responses to events. Number three, they use the first person, I or we. First person singular, I, first person plural, we. Diaries and journals tell us a great deal about each writer's beliefs, political leanings, which political side does he or she take, values, and experience of life. While most remain unpublished, most of the diaries and journals, some that are especially powerful or shed light on historical events, such as these Civil War writings may be published after the writer's death. Again, diaries and journals are personal, they are written informally, they are immediate responses to events, and they are written in first person. Remember this stuff, guys? And most of the diaries and journals are not published. The powerful ones, the ones that would affect the historical study of an event, may be published after its writer's death. Reading strategy, you're going to read three primary sources. These are some of the ideas you should follow while reading. You can read them on your own. And here, what is the relationship between place and literature? This is one of the three essential questions we asked at the beginning of the year. Because one of you would say, why are we studying the Civil War? This is social studies. What is the relationship between the Civil War and language, English? So what is the relationship between place and literature? You know, literature is language. Okay. The Civil War was fought on American soil and in American waters. So I have a question here. When did the Civil War start and when did it end? If you know the answer, put your hand up, please. And as usual, please, I beg you to be active. When did this American Civil War start and when did it end? So nobody knows? When did the Civil War start and when did it end? Hassan Ruhaim, no idea? Hassan? Hassan Ruhaim? Ruhaim?
Yes, Mr. Hashim, like man.
Guys, if I call your name after this and you don't answer me, I'll kick you out of the room. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If I call your name for 3 times and you don't answer, I'll kick you out of the room. Hassan, when did the American Civil War start? If you have an idea.
I think 1860 something, 1861.
Perfect. And ended in 1865. Thank you, Hassan, and follow up, please. Okay, so the Civil War was fought on American soil and in American waters. Reading these diary and journal entries, we have 3 of them, as I said, will help you see how the war caused people to view their own towns, hillsides, and harbors differently. The emotion you have towards the town or the harbor or the hillside that you live near or something like that. As you read, note details that describe various locations as being unfamiliar, comforting, strange, or frightening. We can describe any location as being unfamiliar. You say, I prefer Port Said to Cairo. Why? Port Said is quieter, more familiar. Cairo is more unfamiliar. Port Said, the atmosphere in Port Said is more comforting. It's less comforting. It's strange. It's frightening. It's pleasant, and so on. So, note take guide. This is a guide for you to take notes while reading. You can read it on your own pace. We have a list of vocab here. You need to study this vocab, guys. Adjourned. Adjourned. When something is adjourned, it's delayed. Adjourned means closed for a time or delayed. Convention. A convention is a meeting attended by members or delegates. By the way, this term, guys, you'll be asked to give not the definition of the word, the part of speech and the sentence of your own. So when I give you the list of words you're supposed to study, please prepare beforehand. This will save your time. The part of speech of the word and the sentence, a good sentence, a meaningful sentence. And please, when you write a sentence, don't forget to punctuate it, capitalize it, because some of you write a sentence without a question mark, without a period at the end, without a capital letter at the beginning, and he or she loses marks for this. So you should write a perfect sentence a meaningful sentence. And when you give me the meaning of a word or use a word in a sentence, the meaning should be clear from the context, because some people do this. If they don't know what the word convention means, they would write convention is very good. What's convention? How would I know the meaning of convention from this sentence? Or I like convention very much. If he or she doesn't know the meaning, he just writes any sentence. So you don't take a mark for this such sentences. The sentence you write using a specific item of vocabulary should give the meaning, or the meaning of the word should be clear from the context. Intercepted. Intercepted means seized or stopped something on its way from one place to another. For example, in the past, we used to send letters. I sent, for example, Hassan Gouda a letter, and on the way, Ruhaim intercepts it. He seizes it or stops this letter from reaching its destination. Obstinate. Obstinate when you are stubborn. Obstinate. Obstinate. Recruits. Recruits are the newly drafted soldiers, the new soldiers in the army, the newly drafted ones, the one who have joined the army a short time ago. Fluctuation. Fluctuation is a change in level or intensity. Fluctuation. Spectator. Spectator is a person who watches something without taking part in it, like spectators in football matches, for example. Offensive as a noun here, offensive as a noun, not as an adjective. And offensive is an attack or a raid, an attitude or position of attack, an offensive. Brigade, a unit of soldiers. Entrenchments, entrenchments, trenches. A trench is a long, deep hole with steep sides used as defense against enemy fire. Used to be used in World War I and World War II. These are the important vocab items we need to study. The story behind the documents. Type. I want Abdurrahman Walid to tell me what documents we're talking about, to make sure just you are following up. Walid, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr.
What documents are we talking about here? The story behind the documents. Are you following up? Baghdadi, can you answer my question?
Mr. I don't know.
Okay, Walid, follow up, please. You will know. Follow up, Walid. Abdurrahman Baghdadi, can you answer my question? Baghdadi, can you hear me? Abdurrahman Baghdadi. Okay, Baghdadi is removed because he's not this. Ganna Gouda. Ganna Gouda.
Yes.
What documents are we talking about here? The story behind the documents.
1 second.
Ganna, you weren't following up. Walid, you weren't following up. Follow up, guys, please. Follow up. I don't want to ask you to be on cameras to respect you. I want you to relax, to enjoy your privacy. Please be honest. You attend the session by name, not by attention. Please pay attention and follow up, please. Hala? Hala, are you following up? Hala?
Yes.
What documents are we talking about here? Guys, you should follow up. I ask questions all the time. I'm not here just to read and you listen, or you don't listen. You just join and enjoy. Okay, guys, follow up, please. I'll call your names again. The documents we're talking here are the diaries and journals that document the Civil War. We have 3 examples here. The story behind these documents will be explained in this page. In the early days of April 1861, the nation held its collective breath. The American nation, South Carolina, and 6 other southern states had recently seceded or split away from the Union. But how many states split away from the Union in 1861? 7 states. South Carolina and 6 other southern states. Okay? They formed their own government and elected Jefferson Davis as the president of their new confederacy. So, who was the president of the confederacy? Who can answer me? Put your hand up, please. Who was the president of the confederacy? Okay. Hala, go ahead.
Jefferson Davis.
Thank you. And who was the president of the Union? Of course, as you know, it was Abraham Lincoln. And this war lasted for 4 years, from 1861, as Walid said, to 1865. So the president of the Union was Lincoln. The president of the Confederacy was Jefferson Davis. Okay. Abraham Lincoln had been inaugurated as president of the United States. You know, he was inaugurated the first time, the first term, in 1861. When he refused to acknowledge the Confederacy as a separate entity, an armed conflict between the 2 regions seemed inevitable. So, the Confederacy states, or the Confederate states, the 7 states who split away, wanted Abraham Lincoln to confess their or admit their confederacy, but he refused. The drama was centered on a massive fort that stood in the harbor of Charleston. I have, I think, a map of it here. Give me a second. I can't find it now. Okay. So, Fort Sumter was an island off the coast of South Carolina. On this island, there were, I think, 85, yes, here, unwelcome Union soldiers and their commander. There were about 86 soldiers on this island. They were Union soldiers and they were unwelcome by the Confederate forces. In spite of stern warnings from the Confederacy Army, the Union troops refused to budge, refused to leave. Meanwhile, their food supplies began to dwindle, began to decrease. It was an easy stalemate. It was a difficult situation. Neither the North is the Union, nor the South is the Confederacy, wanted to fire the first shot. Again, it was an easy stalemate. On April 6, 1861, President Lincoln ordered supplies sent to Fort Sumter. The gesture was seen as a threat. Again, we have 86 soldiers from the north on the island of Sumter, Fort Sumter, and they were unwelcomed by the Confederacy. They wanted them to leave, but Abraham Lincoln sent them a shipment with food and supplies. This was a gesture seen as a threat from the South. Southern leaders decided to attack the fort before the shipment arrived. As the attack began at 4:30 a.m. on April 12th, so the first shot was at 4:30. The first bullet was shot at 4:30 in the morning on April 12th, 1861. Citizens of Charleston. What is Charleston? Charleston is the capital city of South Carolina. Clambered went up to their rooftops or housetops to watch the action in the early morning, 4:30 in the morning. Okay, Mary Boykin Chestnut, the writer of one of the diaries, was one of these spectators. She went up to the roof of her house and watched what was happening. Raised in a wealthy aristocratic family, she was a rich woman. Boykin married James Chestnut, her husband Junior, a senator and a Confederate officer. Her husband was a senator, a rich man, and a Confederate officer. While her diary provides a detailed account of the events at Fort Sumter, it also conveys the mixture of optimism and dread felt by most Southern aristocrats during the opening days of the war. So, at 4:30 in the early morning on April 12th, 1861, the first bullet was shot at Fort Sumter. Most of the people in Charleston, the capital city of South Carolina, clambered to the roofs or the rooftops of their houses to see what was happening. They were spectators. Once the war was underway, men hurried to enlist in what most believed would be a swift and glorious conflict. So some saw the military as an opportunity for adventure and
مستر
advancement. Yes,
معلش ينفع دخل الموضوع بس
Baghdadi?
اه
No, he didn't answer me. I kicked him out of the room as I said.
اوكي
I'm sorry. Once the war was underway, men hurried to enlist in what most believe would be a swift and glorious conflict. So why did most of the men hurry to enlist in the war? Some saw the military as an opportunity for adventure and advancement. Again, because some of them saw the opportunity by enlisting in the army. It was an opportunity for adventure and advancement. As we learn from the Journal of Union Soldier Warren Lee Goss, this is one of the writers of the journals we're going to read later. Like Goss, most soldiers were young. And you know, when you are young, people your age, people who are 16, 17, 18, up to maybe 25, are adventurous. They like adventure and they like to advance in life. And had no military experience, these naive young men quickly learned that war meant misery, not glory. So, a question again on this paragraph. Why did many young men enlist in the war? They believed that it was glorious, a glorious conflict. They wanted adventure and advancement, but they discovered that it was misery, not glory. Perhaps no other Civil War battle was as painful as the Battle of Gettysburg. Gettysburg is a city or a town in Pennsylvania in which 51,000 men were either wounded or killed, the largest number or the biggest number in the Civil War. From July 1st to July 3rd, 1863, in the middle of the war, sorry, perhaps no other. It was the largest battle, as we said. About 51,000 men were either wounded or killed in Gettysburg, the Battle of Gettysburg. The Battle of Gettysburg was the largest battle in the American Civil War. It was in Pennsylvania, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. About 51,000 men were either wounded or killed. Guys, the points I repeat are important. From July 1st to July 3rd, and over 3 days, 51,000 men were either wounded or killed. 1863, and 2 years after the beginning of the Civil War, Union and Confederate troops fought near the small town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So it's a small town. After Union troops gained control of the nearby hills, the Confederate troops launched a risky attack on the strongest Union position. The attack, described as both gallant and terrible in the diary of Confederate soldier Randolph Mackim, was a bitter failure. So in this battle, the Union achieved victory, and then the Confederacy tried to do something, but they failed. Although Chestnut, these are the three writers of the three documents we have here. Chestnut, Gus, and Mackem experienced the Civil War in different ways. Because, for example, Chestnut, this woman, her husband, as we said, was a senator and a Confederate soldier. She belonged to the South. So she expressed the events or expressed her ideas in a specific way. Gus, for example, belonged to the North. He expressed it in another way, and so on. Their diaries and journals reveal profound similarities, although they belong to different political leanings. They all try to make a sense or make sense of a fearful unknown and to contribute in some way to the safety and well-being of their loved ones, their companions, and the country and ideals they cherish. The first document is entitled Civil War from Mary Chestnut's. The writer of this diary is Mary Chestnut. Okay. Background: as Mary Chestnut, I want to stop here just to make sure you're following up to explain what is happening. We are going to study three documents describing the American Civil War. We talked about diaries and journals. We defined them. You need to remember the definition. And we talked about their three characteristics. They are written in first person, they are immediate, and so on. They express opinions and ideas of the writer. And we talked about the background, how the American Civil War started in Fort Sumter, and we explained the situation. We talked about the most important battle in American Civil War, Gettysburg, the Battle of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania, from 1st to 3rd of July, 1863. About 51,000 people died. And this is the first document written by Mary Chestnut, sorry. Background: as Mary Chestnut notes in the first diary entry below, plans for an attack on Fort Sumter have been made, and the citizens of Charleston wait with both excitement and anxiety for something or nothing to happen. The people were at the same time excited and anxious at the same time, waiting for something or nothing to happen. The first entry of her diary is April 7th, 1861, about 6 days or 5 days before the start of the war. Today, things seem to have settled down a little. You know, we have an uneasy stalemate. Again, we have 86 soldiers, 85 and their commander, okay, who belong to the Union, who are found on Fort Sumter Island, okay? And they are unwelcomed by the Confederate. They wanted them to leave. The situation was like a stalemate. Nobody wanted to shoot the first bullet. So she says again, today things seem to have settled down a little. One can but hope still. Lincoln or Seward. Lincoln is the president, American president of the Union, or Seward his secretary of state, وزير خارجية لينكولن أيامها, from 61 to 65, have made such silly advances and then far sillier drawings back. There may be a chance for peace after all. So the Union advanced and then drew back. Things are happening so fast. Her husband, Mr. Chestnut, the senator and the Confederate officer, has been made an aide-de-camp, like the advisor or the helper or the assistant of General Beauregard. This is the general or the commander of chief of the Confederate troops. 3 hours ago, we were quietly packing to go home. The convention has adjourned. Again, when an event adjourns, it is delayed. Now he tells me, her husband, tells me the attack upon Fort Sumter may begin tonight. Remember, today is April 7th. The attack started on April 12th. Depends upon Anderson and the fleet outside. Who is Anderson? Pay attention, guys. Anderson is the commander of the 85 soldiers who belong to the Union. Anderson is the Union commander on Fort Sumter Island. Okay? So, because you will hear this name again and again. Depends upon Anderson and the fleet outside. Fleet, you know, fleet means a group of ships, warships. The Herald, this is a famous newspaper at the time, said that this show of war outside of the bar is intended for Texas. John Manning came in with his sword and red sash, like a red bill, one of the Confederates, pleased as a boy to be on Beauregard's staff while the row goes on. He has gone with Wigfall to Captain Harstein with instructions. These names are not important. Mr. Chestnut is finishing a report he had to make to the convention. There was a convention, like a convention or a conference or a big meeting. Mrs. Hayen called. She said, but one feeling, pity for those who are not here. Jack Preston, Willie Alston, the Take Life Easies, as they are called with John Green. These are the attendants or the attendees of the convention. The big brave have gone down to the island, volunteered as privates. A private, again, is a low-rank soldier. A private is a low-rank soldier. 700 men were sent over. Ammunition wagons rumbling along the streets all night. Ammunition trucks or wagons were running in the streets in the direction of the port, okay, to attack Fort Sumter. Anderson, again, the commander of the Union troops on the island, burning blue lights, signs and signals for the fleet outside, I suppose. She describes the situation, and this is people on the roofs of their houses watching what was happening from a distance in the sea here in Fort Sumter. Some of them were lying down, maybe lost consciousness because they saw the fire. Some of them were watching. Some of them were clinging to each other, hugging each other because they were, again, they were full of hope and anxiety at the same time. Today at dinner, there was no allusion to things as they stand in Charleston Harbor. There was an undercurrent of intense excitement. There could not have been a more brilliant circle, in addition to our usual quartet. Judge Withers, these are some of the people who attended. Our two governors dined with us, Means and Manning. These men all talked so delightfully, so the attendees of the convention talked happily. For once in my life, I listened. That over, business began. In earnest, Governor Means rummaged a sword. He looked for a sword and red sash, a red belt from somewhere, and brought it for Colonel Chestnut, my husband, who has gone to demand the surrender of Fort Sumter. So they decided to send Mary's husband, Mr. Chestnut, or Colonel Chestnut, to demand the surrender of Fort Sumter. I'll end the session here and see you in 5 minutes, inshallah.